Get started in just a sec. Okay, so now that we're live on YouTube, I don't want to keep people who watch the replay later, even though it's weird. Only at 26. Normally we can pull about 50 people on this. So I was like, man, is there like a holiday or something I'm not aware of? People, is it like, I don't know. So, all right, we'll go ahead and get started just because I don't want to keep the people who are watching on YouTube waiting. I don't want to keep you guys waiting who are on time. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. So today I'm going to be working from the 17 indisputable laws of teamwork, kind of like we have been for the last little bit. I'm going to be covering 2 of the laws today. That seems to be kind of the general thing that we're doing, and it works because it's easier to work with 2 than just kind of rattling off a whole bunch of them. So the 2 we are going to be working from today, which is ironically one thing that I mentioned after I just noticed the Zoom attendance, is the law of countability, not accountability, but law of countability, and the law of the price tag. And so law of the countability states that teammates must be able to count on each other when it counts. And so in here, he kind of talks about it's good to count on one another, but can you count on somebody when it counts? That means, can you count on somebody when the pressure is on? Can you count on somebody when times are hard? Can you count on that person when you need to work harder, push harder, things like that? That's the law of countability. Can you count on that person? He goes into talking a little bit more about holding one another accountable to increase character toward cultivating that accountability as teammates. And here it says, we don't work for each other, we work with each other. He has in here a formula for accountability that he believes leads to more successful teams, and I'll go ahead and give those to you guys. It is character plus competence plus commitment plus consistency and plus cohesion equals accountability. So character, competence, commitment, consistency, and cohesion all equal into the law of accountability. And so you can't necessarily work in this law and operate within this law within a team without accountability. And so he's saying if you don't have accountability, you lack character, competence, commitment, consistency, and cohesion. And so that's a big statement right there. So if your teammates can't count on you to show up when they need you, and this isn't just like, oh, I needed you to answer my 3-way message right then and there. Oh my gosh, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, are you a team player? Do you show up when do you show up when it counts? And so it's just kind of like, if you're playing the big game, right, the big championship game, and your team's like, where the heck is Tracy? Where the heck is Laura? Where the heck is Rachel? And they're like halfway through the game and they're nowhere to be found. They're like, well, then screw them. Like they're just, I can't count on them. They're not here. So when Tracy starts stumbling in, oh, sorry, I was just partying with the girls, got a little hungover, whatever kind of thing. It's like, how about not? Not that would ever be Tracy. I think that's why it was safe to use her as an example, because I think everybody would want to beat me after suggesting such a thing. But so character, competence, commitment, consistency, and cohesion all work together to create accountability. He does go into describing them individually. I won't go into too much depth about that. But character, I think that goes without saying what character is. Character isn't just your attitude. Character isn't just your beliefs. And I don't mean like spiritual beliefs, but I mean like your moral compass. Character isn't just, what you say, what you do. Character is all of those things. Robert Cook says, there's no substitute for character. You can buy brains, but you can't buy character. Character is something either you have or you don't. Character is also made, but it is not made when you need it. It is made during the process that you may need it for a different time. So what I mean by that is if you're in a predicament right now where you need character, it's too late. Character should have been developed before that moment. However, this may be a defining moment for you to shape your character to be able to utilize for next time, if that makes sense. So character is never available upon request when you need it. It's developed in the moment for a later date. And so if you feel like you don't have some of those things now, then maybe what you're going through at the moment or what you are creating in the moment is there to help form your character so that you can use it later, so that you can have more accountability. You can have I think character in general is just something that helps you overall in life. I'm not going to say just in this business, but and then there's competence. I was talking to some of our leaders yesterday and I was like, the saying is a saying for a reason. The best trained teams are the most successful teams. And so part of me wanted to look at this and say, why don't we see here the success that we could, considering we are one of the best trained teams in the entire company? We have the most resources. We train more than anybody. We have so many various things that we can all link into. Why isn't the competence there? It's like the information is there, but where is the competence and the confidence that comes as a result? Because I think that's what they mean when they say the best trained teams are the best or the most successful teams, is because they take a lot of that knowledge and then they turn it into competence. Competence is knowledge backed by action. So I want you to think to yourself, okay, well, are you taking the time to know things? And then are you taking time to put into action the things that you know? So a lot of times people will hop on Zooms, they'll look at the Trello board, they'll read, they'll do all these things, but they fail to put stuff in action. Knowledge doesn't create action. Knowledge doesn't even create momentum. Action creates momentum. Knowledge just fuels your action. Knowledge just makes you better. Knowledge just makes you faster. But action needs to be the very first thing that you take, and it's fueled by the knowledge. And so I think that's where we may be falling short in the competency aspect, is that we have the knowledge out there and the training and the stuff that's being put in front of us, but what are we doing with it? How are we retaining it? And not only how are we retaining it, but how are we putting it into action? Next is commitment. This means commitment to, and I'm just talking about this, commitment to the product, commitment to the company, but more importantly, commitment to the team, commitment to your goals, and commitment to the things that you said you wanted. The reason you started, and maybe that's changed. So whatever it is, maybe it's different now than it was then. Are you committed to that? Because if you were committed, you would do the things you said you would do. So if you're not doing the things you say that you were going to do, you're clearly not committed enough to it. And that's okay. It's not an attack on your character. It's a magnifying glass under which you need to look at and go, well, why? Why am I not committing to this? Maybe my why is different now. Maybe the scope of why I want to do this has changed. So it's not saying that, oh, you can't commit and that's not what I'm saying. As I'm saying, if you can look at that and not commit to it, it's not an attack on you. It's a direction to reevaluate what you are committing to, because you may be committing to the wrong thing. Or you may need to evaluate what you're committing to. Some people feel like if they're committing to the team, that they're somehow aligning themselves with their upline. I know that that's a big thing in network marketing, is because you can't choose. You can't, sometimes you can in the beginning, but you can't necessarily choose who your upline, downline, you can't. A lot of you guys didn't choose me. Some people on here chose me, but Whitney didn't choose me. Krista didn't choose me. Brooke didn't choose me. They're not my personals, right? They didn't choose me. And so sometimes, and it's okay, is that you may not mesh with that person. Some of you guys may not mesh with me. Some of you may not mesh with Alicia or Tracy or Rachel or Abigail or Caitlin or whoever, and that's okay. And sometimes we tend to think that it's mutually exclusive in that when we are committing to the team and the team vision and the team mission, we're somehow committing our allegiance to a person. And that's not at all what it is. It is committing to the overarching aspect of the team, the village, where we are moving to, right? It's kind of like soldiers who let's just, we're all in America, American soldiers, they fight for the overarching concept of what America is and freedom and all these notions, right? They're not fighting for the president. They're not fighting for this person or that person. There might be people in this world, I guarantee, in this country that they can't stand, that they hate, but they go to war to protect their freedom. They go to war. So it's kind of the same thing. They're doing it for a bigger cause, for the team. And this team is America, but they're doing it for the general consensus. Does that make sense? The general overall health of the village, team, tribe, whatever. And they're committed to that. Then there's consistency. I think we know what that means, doing the same thing with repetition and commitment. So consistency for us can look like, working our own businesses consistently, but it can also look like, are we helping one another consistently? Are we being available consistently? Can our team depend on us? Right? I hear some of the times it's like, well, I can't message so-and-so because I never know when they're going to be online, or I never know when they're going to read my message, or when they're going to get back to me. And that's just one example. Like sometimes people have to establish boundaries. I get that. So that's just like one isolated incident. But, are you consistent? Can someone look at the participants board and say, I can either consistently predict that I will never see your name, or can they consistently predict that they will almost always see your name? Things like that matter, because your team wants to know if you're expected to be there, you're there. And not for every single one. I know a lot of things that people say it's taken like very black and very white. That's not the world we live in. I'm just using examples. Okay. I'm not saying that if I don't see Tracy's name, I'm going to pick on Tracy because she's like right here next to me on the screen. But if I don't see her name here on the Zoom, I'm like, oh, she's just not consistent. I can't, can't depend on her, never there. No, I know that 9 times out of 10, or even heck, 8 times out of 10, her name's going to be on there. Actually, I know 10 times out of 10, but I'm just saying, that's the point. Whereas there are some people I can say, wow, I'm actually surprised I see their name. So you're creating a reputation for yourself based on your consistency, sorry, hold on a second. I don't know how my animals opened that door. My husband's watching a movie, so he's going to be like, can you shut up? So whatever you are doing, whether you are meaning to do it intentionally or not, your consistency one way or other is creating a reputation for yourself. So you may not consistently on purpose be doing something, but if your actions are they're repetitive and you're consistently doing something or consistently not doing something, that's why consistency is so important. But when we're talking about in the team aspect about character and competence and all that, it's really about what are your patterns of behavior saying about you? What kind of reputation are they creating for you? What kind of name are they creating for you? And again, this all blends into each other, where how is it representing your character? Because remember, is your character is based on what you do and who you are, not who you say you are. And consistency and competence and all of that just is like the evidence of your character. And then there's cohesion. Cohesion brings it together in the team aspect, where how good of a team player are you? How well can you play with others? Again, it's all about, you don't have to like that person. I know that there are people on this team that I may not mesh with. I mean, I wouldn't mess with some people, but that I don't mesh with. There are people that Mikkel's not going to mesh with. There's people that Sue Ellen's not going to mesh with, right? And that is perfectly okay, because we are human and we are not obligated to love in the terms of like friendship love, like we're all supposed to love each other, but as humans, but we don't have to have a sleepover and braid each other's hair and be like, oh my God, you're such my bestie. Like, we don't have to. No, a lot of us have the luxury of really, really, really enjoying each other's company and really getting along. However, if we can respect one another and work with one another and have that cohesion, that is great, because that's just respecting that person's position in, not like hierarchy, but just that they are part of a tribe and that you are there. Again, very much just like the military. They don't have to have the same beliefs as the person they're fighting next to, They don't have to be the same gender. They don't have to be the same race. They don't have to have the same outlook. They can support different political parties, but they work together for the same cause, and not just because they're like, because I have to, right? And so all of those things play into accountability. And a lot of us who just don't want to do that, you will find that you struggle a lot to work in the team regard. Because accountability is one of the biggest things when it comes to working in a team atmosphere. Wouldn't you guys agree? Is that being able to depend on your teammates creates a better performing team. You know, when you think of football teams and they practice and practice and practice, or there's people who they never show up to practice, or so-and-so can't predictably do this, or so-and-so's always partying, or so-and-so's always doing this, or when I throw the ball, I expect them to do the routes we talked about, but so-and-so's going to throw the ball over here and this line, you know, they're way over there. So teamwork is crucial when it comes to this law. It can either make or break it. I'm not going to go into the huge kind of thing in there, but it just talks about when there is no accountability, there is broken trust. When you cannot count on your team members, it is either because of broken trust or you are in the middle of breaking trust. It says, there's an old saying that says it says you're either pulling together or pulling apart. There is no middle ground. Every action you take is either pulling closer together or pulling farther apart. Because when you see a major example of broken trust that destroys accountability on a team, you know it instantly. And here it just talks about leaders' abuse of power, employees not being, not having, obviously, the law of accountability, disorganization, undermining team members. There's loads of examples in here. It talks about how to become a better team member, and he gives you 5 questions to ask yourself to figure out we all need to be working on all of these laws, but if you feel like you lack in the law of accountability, he kind of gives you these 5 questions. And the first one with character. So this one is in regards to character. And it says, is your integrity unquestioned? Is your integrity unquestioned? For competence, he says, do you perform your work with excellence? For commitment, is it evident that you are dedicated to the team's success? Consistency is, can you be depended on every time? And then cohesion is, do your actions bring the team as a whole together? I know there's a lot of us that maybe have 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5. Then I know there's some who have maybe 1 out of 5, 2 out of 5. And it's really, and I think, again, that's why we see such a disparity on the team. I think that's why maybe within certain teams, there's tension, or because there's tension in some teams, there's tension in the overall team, or pulling apart. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like he said in here, it is clear and evident when, number 3 is, are you dedicated to the team's success? And that's for questioning commitment. So in order to really kind of work on this, I think, again, when you feel like you are butting heads with people, or you feel like you're in this tug of war, either with a person or with team members or with different teams, right? If you're a leader and you have many legs, you know what I mean when I say different teams. It can be anything. It can be with an upline. It can be with a sister leg. It can be with a bunch of whoever you're working with, right? It really is all about this law of accountability. And I really think that if the team can count on you and you can count on the team, that's where this gap that I think specifically and speaking frankly, we here on this team, Thrive Army, when we bridge that gap with fixing this law of accountability, we will see a lot more success. Because I see a lot of people who are all in, and I see a lot of people who are only all in for themselves, or only all in just for their team, or I see people who are half in, half out. Then I see people who are not in, but want to be in. You see, I'm like, there's so many. And that just means that we just don't have that cohesion of accountability. Unless you are all in, you cannot be dependent upon. So if you can't answer all of those questions, and I'm not talking about just your team, just your 3 or 4 or 5 people, or just your 20 people, or just your 150 people, but the whole team, then that is a big part of what's missing with the success you're trying to have, your team is trying to have, the team as a whole is trying to have, because it really does matter. I think a lot of times, because it's network marketing and we all own our own businesses and we're all our own boss and all that, we tend to think that that's not necessary. We tend to think that we can kind of cash out of the team and just be like, I'm just going to worry about like my team from now on, because like, right? And that's fine. But you have to understand that when you do that, you put a lid on your success, because you literally block yourself into this box, this confine where people can't come in and help can't be given, right? And then you kind of feel like this, or you surround yourself like by water on all sides. And naturally we tend to think that way because we're like, it's weird how this works, where you do that because you feel like you can't count on people, right? You do that because of that broken trust, because the law of accountability wasn't honored. And so you then say, F it, I'm just going to worry about my team, right? I've been there. You do that. And then because you are not opening up to being that person to others, you limit yourself, and you inevitably as a leader put a cap or put a lid on your team success. And that goes back to the 21 laws of leadership, the law of the lid. What you do and the example you set and the things that you have as, not morals or ethics, but kind of your code of conduct is what sets the lid for your team. So if you're unwilling to do certain things, or if you're unwilling to be a team player, or you're unwilling to do a lot of the things that we're talking about, or grow in your character, or grow in your commitment, or grow in your consistency, you put a lid on your team. But you're kind of under this illusion that it's only affecting you. Well, my team can do it if they want to. I just don't want to. But as the leader, again, you're the lid. So wherever you put that lid is only where they can grow. The second one is the law. Sorry. So the second law is the law of the price tag. And the team fails to reach its potential when it fails to pay the price. So he goes on to say in this particular chapter that if everyone doesn't pay the price to win, then everybody will pay the price to lose. If not everybody is bought in to the end goal and willing to pay the price, then the team as a whole will lose. And maybe and here's the thing, it's weird, like going back to the law of accountability, maybe that's what you want, but you're under this illusion that everyone else will lose, but you won't. Or you and your team won't, but everyone else will. Kind of like when you're playing tug of war and you're like, you make them pull and then you go, you let go and then they all fall. You think that's what it is, but it's not. What it really is everyone's tied to the same rope and you're playing this tug of war and then you let go and they all fall off the cliff, and guess who's going with them? That's what happens. And so if everyone doesn't pay the price, then everyone must be willing to pay the price to lose. The price must be paid by everybody. And for us, what that looks like is time, energy, risk. Paying the price looks different for everybody. You know, for somebody who has a lot of money in the bank and someone who doesn't, buying a $400 box may be a different price for them. I'm not talking like money price, but I'm talking about what it means. You know what I mean? Someone who's a millionaire is like, oh, I can just go buy a $400 box, versus someone who only has $420 in the bank. It's not the actual price, it's the sacrifice on the other side. And sometimes that can look like time, energy, money, all that stuff. And how much are you bought into the team and the team vision and the team mission, your team, the bigger team, whatever, paying the price. A lot of times, some people want to just take it easy. They're like, you know what? And they make a lot of really good rationales. I just don't have the skills. I just don't have the time. Oh man, I don't have the patience for that. Well, you know what? That's just not in my wheelhouse. And then what you end up doing is you end up not contributing. And then other people are paying the price. Other people are willing to pay the price. And you're just kind of riding the coattails, if that makes sense. So if we're going back to like the governmental structure, it's like these people are paying their taxes. These people aren't, because they're like, I don't want to, I can't really afford it, and I don't want to pay the price. Yet they're also going to all the same schools. They're giving the same care, the same this, the same that. And sometimes that's fine, right? It can be circumstantial. But I think overall, what do you foresee happening in that circumstance? I don't know. Let me know in the comments, as the person either that's not paying the taxes or the person that is paying the taxes. Yeah, burnout. Maybe the people at the top, or not the top, but people who are paying the taxes, or who are like, okay, well, my brother, my sister, my neighbor, they can't afford it, so I'll pay their portion. Because here's the thing, is we tend to think that and I'm going to use this because they're on either side. So this isn't it. I'm just going to use again Tracy, because she's over here, and Laura, because she's over here. So Tracy and Laura are both paying their taxes, right? They're both paying, let's call it the Thrive tax, right? Then Laura experiences something, and she's like, whoa, I don't know if I can do that right now. And Tracy's totally okay. So here's the thing, is in order for the Thrive world to still run, we can't just not go without Laura's portion. We can't just go without it and expect things to not change. So Tracy goes, you know what? I'll cover that. I'll pay mine and Laura's. Right? Not bad if you're only doing it every once in a while. But then Laura kind of gets comfortable not giving that money over every single time. And so she's not contributing, and she's not doing this. But Tracy's still paying it. But we kind of get under this illusion again that it's like, well, Tracy's paying for hers. I'm just not paying mine right now. No. If you're not paying yours, somebody is. That's a team, y'all. That's a team. If you're not paying yours, somebody is. They're paying theirs and yours. And I'm talking, and for us here, it looks like effort. It looks like energy. It looks like resources. It looks like time. Right? I think I used this example, I can't remember, but if like Laura's just like sitting somewhere and she's like, oh, I have a question. I don't really want to go into Trello or whatever, but like, so Mikkel, can you let me know how much caffeine does the Activate have? You didn't want to take the time to look. So you asked Mikkel, what's Mikkel going to have to do? Take the time to go look to give you the answer. Now, does she mind doing that once in a while? Absolutely not, especially if you're new and you don't know. Maybe she'll do it 3, 4, 5, 6 times, right? And again, these are all just examples I can think of off the top of my head, but there's like a million ways. And that's what this is talking about, the law of the price tag. I think for us here on this team, the law of the price tag, the heftiest price to pay is time. That is the heftiest price to pay. I thought of this the other day, and I can only use my life as an example, and I'm sure a lot of you guys can insert your own examples, but I almost thought every single time I got a question on here that we have a resource for, I wouldn't take a picture of what I'm doing. And then I will add up the amount of time that it takes me to have a dialogue with this person or answer the question or to do whatever. And I would add it all up at the end of the time and then let you guys know exactly what I'm exchanging at that time. To answer your question about this, I took away 30 minutes watching a movie with my son. To sit here and talk to you about this, I couldn't go and do whatever it was. And like I said, I'm not saying like, oh, I'm just using me. I don't want to pretend like I know what Tracy does with her time or Rachel does with her time or Caitlin or Whitney or whoever, because you guys are the same way. You guys shouldn't be doing those things either. With people, your team should be honoring those things. However, like I said, with paying the price, we all have to pay the price in some way. I can't just never be available to answer questions. Mikkel just can never be available to answer questions. That's not a luxury we have. But what I am saying is everyone must be willing. Again, like the tax thing, everyone must be willing to do it. So if I'm going to take the time to do this, to lead Zooms, to make resources, to do one-to-ones, to do coaching calls, Rachel can also take the time to do certain things. Maybe Rachel can make the time to get on a Zoom. Maybe Rachel can make the time to honor her one-to-one coaching call. Maybe Rachel can take the 5 minutes and go look at Trello or go look at the back office or go look at this and take that 5 minutes to go find the answer, right? Because remember, if you're not paying it, somebody is. And so I think when you get that once in a while is fine. But I think where I was going with my example was, okay, maybe it's just Caitlin asking me how many milligrams of caffeine is in the Activate. And that's just between her and that's fine. But maybe what Caitlin doesn't see and what Katrina doesn't see and what Shalisha doesn't see, whatever, is that Carissa's also asking me a question. Tammy's asking me a question. Krista was asking me something earlier. Alicia had a question for me as well. Courtney had a problem. She really wanted to discuss it. Brooke is feeling tension between her and another teammate, and she really wants to talk it out. Christian's just kind of not feeling that this is for her anymore. And so she wants to just really like, oh, you know what I mean? And that's like hours. So to go back to this is the price must be paid by everybody. Number 2 is the price must be paid all the time. There are no victories at a bargain price. That's a quote from Dwight Eisenhower. There are no victories at a bargain price. Number 3 is the price always increases if the team wants to improve, change, or keep winning. I want you guys to hear that out. The price increases if the team wants to improve, change, or keep winning. So I guess that is I don't want to say warning, but I guess a foretelling for all of us that guess what? If you can't pay the price now, if you're not willing to pay the price now, you sure as hell won't be willing to pay the price later. Because they just told us the price gets higher, right? The price gets higher. It's kind of like if you're unsatisfied with your small apartment now and you want to make more money to move out, guess what? You need to anticipate you are going to be paying a lot more for that new house. As you increase your space, your size, right, your success, it all costs more. As you make more, everything costs more. Your cars cost more, your houses cost more, your kids' school costs more. So the price of success is always higher. And then number 4, he says the price never decreases. Once you pay the price and you keep paying the price and you keep paying it, it never goes back down. It's like the American economy, right? Once it raises the prices, it never goes back down. So I'll reiterate them for the note takers, is the price must be paid by everyone. The price must be paid all the time. The price increases if the team wants to improve, change, or win. The price never decreases. I want to go back to number 2 where he says the price must be paid all the time. And there's a quote in here from the 21 qualities of a leader. And it says, some people mistakenly believe that if they can accomplish a particular goal, they no longer have to grow. It can happen with almost anything, earning a degree, reaching a desired position, achieving an award, but effective leaders cannot afford to think that way. The day they stop growing is the day they forfeit potential for both themselves and the team and the potential of their organization. As long as you're green, you're growing. As soon as you're ripe, you're rotting. And that's what they mean by paying the price all the time. I know a lot of people hear paying the price and they think, oh my God, I'm going to be making like sacrifices constantly. I'm never going to be with my team. I'm never going to be with my kids and my family. And that's not what we're talking about. When it's the price must be paid all the time, it is, are you always growing? Are you always improving? Are you always making room? If you're sacrificing too much, that's just it. You're sacrificing too much. You might have to, it's almost like work smarter, not harder. You might have to sacrifice smarter, not harder, right? Sacrificing in different areas. Maybe not all the time, but maybe one bigger one. A lot of the times we have to sacrifice our pride. That's what I see. Sacrificing that self-doubt and that pride and that comfort zone is really the biggest price a lot of people are holding on to. It is like that prized possession. They're holding on to it, they're clutching onto it, and they will not pay it. On here, and to close it out, he says the price of teamwork is sacrifice, which is what we were just talking about. The price of teamwork is sacrifice. The team gets to the top only through the blood, sweat, tears, and sacrifice of all the team members. Time commitment. Teamwork doesn't come cheap. It costs time. That means you pay for it. Oh gosh, this is going to drive some people. Says you pay for it with your life. But what he means is you pay for it because time is your life. That's what we have. That's what our life is made up of. Time. It takes time to get to know people, to build relationships, to learn how they work, to learn what they're motivated by. Teamwork can't be developed in a microwave. It's a crock pot environment, he says. The price of teamwork is personal development. Your team will reach its potential only if you can reach your potential. Remember the law of the lid. You set the ceiling for which your team can excel to. Unselfishness. When you give your best to the team gives the best in return. People naturally look out for themselves. The question, what's in it for me, is never far from their thoughts. But if a team is to reach its potential, its players must put the team's agenda ahead of its own. This is the law of the big picture. So to pay the price, you have to basically sacrifice your selfishness. And sacrifice the, well, what's in it for me kind of thing. And I'm not talking about self-care. and healthy boundaries. I feel like sometimes I have to reiterate because I know we have a lot of like black and white concrete thinkers. And if I say you have to sacrifice your unselfishness, people will be like, oh my God, I can never be selfish. I can never say I need time for myself. I never need, no. We're talking about having healthy boundaries. But these are kind of like an all or nothing thing. There are lots of people on teams that don't want to sacrifice their time, that don't want to sacrifice the fun things, right? They're like, they will never say, no, I can't do that because of a date night or a movie or a dinner or watching a Netflix show or whatever, right? Oh, I'm sorry, I can't do that because of whatever. Well, it's like newsflash, your family or your loved ones, your kids or your spouse never go on hold, right? They're always there. But sometimes there do need to be those kind of bargains. So paying the price. And one, I think these two are incredibly vital to effective teamwork. And I specifically concentrated on those two this week because I really do feel like as a team, if we have a gap, those two fit very well into what that gap is. And if you were, I think it was last Sunday or the Sunday before, we talked about the bigger, the disparity. So if you have a bunch of people who are 10s and then a bunch of people who are like 3s, that's dangerous. Because the bigger the gap between the lowest performing and the highest performing is dangerous. And so that's that big gap we have. And in the middle, because that gap is so large, that's where the law of accountability and the law of the price tag exist, specifically for us here. And so I think asking yourself, am I willing to pay the price? Am I willing to continue to pay the price as it increases? And if I'm not willing to pay the price, why? Then I want you to kind of ask yourself those 5 questions that we talked about earlier with the law of accountability, questioning your character, putting, your competency under examination, and then working on those. None of these self-evaluations are to decide if this is for you or not. That's not what it is. It's to decide, where do I need to grow in order to be a better leader and ultimately a better team player? Because the best kind of leader is the best team player. And I will always go to Tom Brady because it's just what he's known for. And the reason that he was the way he was is because he sacrificed his pay to be able to pay other players more, because he realized that was part of being a team player. They always offered millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars and then pay the team pennies. And he was like, no. And he would show up before and leave after everybody. And he would practice 10 times more than other people would, because again, it was all about being a team player. The better leader is the best team player. My husband's active duty. The best officers, the best NCOs, the best leaders are the ones who are involved, who are there, who are team players, who have the law of accountability, and they're willing to pay the price. Right? What is it we always like talk about, like with American government, right? We all pay out the ass for stuff, but like our government doesn't, right? Somehow they all get by paying nothing, right? They don't pay the price. They don't pay the price for that kind of stuff. But we as Americans do. And so I think that that's kind of this general dissension between the American people and the government, along with lots of other things. But again, you see it, right? The whole Robin Hood tale with paying the price, everything. I want you to think about even your marriage, your relationships, your friendships. A lot of those things come when you're willing to do something and they're not. You're willing to pay the price, but they're not. Or vice versa. They're willing to pay the price and you're not. They're willing to change and bend and mold themselves differently, but you're not. You're willing to meet them in the middle and to give up your old life and to do this and to do that, but they're not. And so it doesn't work out. So I want you to think about paying the price in this very vague sense, this much more global sense. And asking yourself right now, how are you paying the price for your team? What are you investing? How are you adding value? If we're talking, I want you to imagine that time was money. Your time and your energy had a dollar value on it. Are you constantly withdrawing from the team? Are you constantly adding value to the team? Are you constantly making deposits into the team bank? Oh my God, stop it. Everyone makes fun of me because of the way I say drawing. I'm from Maine, guys, okay? I don't know if that means anything, if that's how we say it up there, okay? I can't say it like everyone else does. Drawing, that feels weird. My mouth feels weird when I say it like that. So are you taking from the bank or are you depositing into the bank? If your time was money, how are you adding value? I love when I see people reaching out to me and say, hey, how can I add value to the team? How can I add value to this? How can I be an asset, right? We're thinking financial assets, value, deposits, right? Money. How can I be an asset to the team? Also, I think when you do that, you work in your genius and you become better at what you do overall. And inherently, you're just adding value to the team. So it's this twofold thing where you're like earning interest on it. When you invest in a team, you earn interest on it. When you take from the team, like money, if we're thinking like money, when you take the time or you take that from the team, you're not. So I really want you to kind of think about that. And really, I mean, if you want to have an honest conversation with somebody, go for it. I'm not going to stop you, but more so, I think having an honest conversation with yourself is, am I adding to the team or am I withdrawing from the team? And then if you feel like you're just withdrawing, maybe you feel like I'm not withdrawing or adding to, then just kind of ask yourself, well, how can I start making deposits into the team? How can I start adding value? How can I start being an asset? And then when you do reach out to an upline, reach out to the chat, reach out to whatever, and ask. I'm sure that there are, but trust me when I say that there is not going to be a single person on here who is going to be upset sharing the burden and sparing themselves time. Okay. Nobody is going to be like, oh man, I was really hoping that I could just work an extra 20 hours this week on this stuff, right? They're going to be more than willing to share. So anyway, if you guys haven't gotten this book yet, I really encourage you to. It's really good to read on your own. I think it's really good to self-reflect as yourself, as a team member. I think it's really good to have as a leader. If you don't consider yourself a leader yet, yes, the workbook, I have that one right here too. But I think it's really good to learn these things or to cultivate these things in yourself up front. Whether you feel like you have a team underneath you or not, it's better to cultivate these skills on the front end rather than the back end. So I hope that helped you guys out. I really do think sometimes these things are, I don't want to say like hard to hear, but I mean, they're not like light and fluffy, kind of topics. I think they can tend to be pretty heavy because I think they really pull into us a lot of conviction about, what am I doing? How can I grow? How can I be better? I think that we are a badass team, but I know that there are ways we can grow. I know there's ways I can grow. And these are some of the ways I think as a bird's eye view, I've just looked at and seen in the various teams about why I think maybe we're not growing the way we want to. And if we can kind of bridge those gaps, I think we would just see so much more success and a lot less burnout from you guys. I really do feel like if you're feeling burnt out, it's because you're like a tire running in the mud and not going anywhere and not gaining traction. But if we could just fill the gaps in these two particular areas, you would find that traction you needed and life would feel less stressful. Because again, when you lean into the team, there's more there to help you along. There's more hands and more weight to create momentum. It's not just you pushing it by yourself. So I love you guys. Thank you so much for taking time to get on. We are not going to have the leader one after this, only because I have to get up at 2 a.m. to fly to Arizona. So I am heading to bed pretty much right after this. So I love you guys. Thank you so much for getting on. As always, I love and appreciate your time and that you guys take the time to do this. So go spend some time with your families. And I will catch you guys tomorrow because we have our mindset with Rachel and Crystal.